This is a Smith's Westminster chime clock, which I've had for 40 years or more, and it worked really well when I first got it. I got it second hand, but for the past 5 years, probably more, it hasn't gone. It stopped and it wouldn't restart. I had it serviced when I first bought it in 1989, and it cost me £40, which was an awful lot of money then. So I investigated the possibility of having it re-cleaned. Anyway, when I inquired, it was going to cost somewhere around about £200, because the whole thing needed dismantling, cleaning, bushes replacing and so on, re-oiling, and then all putting back together again. The problem is that once it's all done, the clock itself isn't worth 200 quid. So I thought, well, I'll have a go at this myself. So I investigated on the internet and bought myself a book for beginners, and then I thought, well, if I can get hold of a similar clock which is absolutely US, with the same movement in it, then I could take one of the bits and have a spare, as it were, in case I had any problems putting it all back together. So went on the internet and bid for an absolutely knackered clock, which up until about the last 5 minutes before the 7-day sale ended, I looked like getting for just over £10, which I thought was a real bargain. Anyway, the last, I would think, 5 minutes even, the price suddenly rocketed to £49, which I thought was ridiculous. So I've abandoned that idea. So I'll take the movement out of the clock and have a close look at it, and see where I go from there. So there you can see the movement, and it's held onto the face of the front of the case by 8 little screws, which I have to take out. In fact, I've taken 7 of them out. There's one still to take out. So that's the movement removed from the clock. Now, just having a look down the inside of there, there's absolutely no way you could tackle that. In other words, to separate the two plates. This is the front plate and the back plate, and all these bits and pieces here all fall out. Even if you had a spare movement to sort of compare it with, it would be a very, very difficult task, and probably require specialist tools to do it as well, especially if you need bushes replacing or something like that. So, what to do with it? Well, I'll just try and clean it. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do. I mean, it's not going if and it's probably had all sorts of stuff, the wrong oil, or even WD-40 if it existed. Somebody's probably had a squirt of that in it at some time as well. I wonder if I just soak it in petrol first of all, just to loosen any any dried up gunge which is on it. It says on the back, made in Great Britain, Smith's Clocks and Watches. So it was, that name didn't come in until about 1955, so it's a post to 1955 make. And the first thing you have to do is unwind the springs, or as they call it, let down the springs. Now there are 3 springs on this thing. There's one there, there's one here, and there's another one there. So I suspect one is for the hours, one for the quarter hours, and one for the time, the clock itself. Now letting these down apparently is quite, can be quite a dangerous thing to do. Well, there you can see the key on the winding mechanism here for this spring. And this is the ratchet when you wind it up. This little thing here prevents the spring from unwinding. And the ratchet is mechanism has this little spring here. So to unwind the spring, you have to push this away and allow the spring to spring back. But of course they're such powerful things that if you try and hold the key while you pull this back, this thing wangs around with such force you take your finger end off. So you need to make yourself a holder for the key to prevent that from happening. Now you can buy these things for letting down springs, but I've simply taken a piece of this very stiff cold water pipe. You can't do it with horse pipe, it just won't work. So I've got some very stiff cold water pipe and I've just sawn a cut and then pushed the key into the cut, so it's held in there quite firmly. So I can hold it like that, so that when the spring is unwinding I can control it by holding this piece of pipe, hopefully. So that spring is fully unwound now. I just need to repeat that with the other 2 and then take it from there. Well, I've been soaking it outside in this petrol for about 2 days now, I'll lift it out of there and have a look at it and see what needs cleaning, and think about how I'm going to clean it. Well, this is the Westminster chime clock mechanism, which has been soaking in this petrol for some time now. So today I'm going to give it a quick blast with carb cleaner, and then a good blowing over with compressed air. And then once I've done that, I'll oil it with clock oil. Before putting it back in the clock, I'll set it up on a board and see if it runs all right. It certainly looks an awful lot cleaner than it did before I put it in. Before I clean it with carb cleaner, I'll just give it the once over with this electric toothbrush. I suppose it has a sort of slight ultrasonic effect. And just pay particular attention to all the little holes where the pivots are. You can just see it now where there's some deposit. Hopefully the compressed air will be able to clean all that off. So that's a good squirt of carb cleaner. I just need to go and blow the whole lot off now with compressed air and wash my hands, wash this stuff off my hands. I should really have worn plastic gloves, but it's much easier just to do. I mean, if you were doing it often, plastic gloves would be essential, but just as a one-off, it's not too bad. One of these pivot holes there seems like it could do with repairing, but that would mean dismantling the clock. It doesn't seem too bad. Anyway, we're going to have to settle for it. It seems to be the only one. The rest of them seem to be alright. Well, that's about as good as I can get. I'll have to dry the clock completely now, particularly the big springs, the 3 big springs, and then lubricate it. How you oil the big springs, I have no idea, but I suspect there's a hole somewhere. And what you oil them with is another matter. But I've got some synthetic motor oil, which is quite thin, and I'll oil the springs with that. So this is the oil I'll be using to oil the clock springs. It's a synthetic long life oil. It lasts for ages, and but it is expensive stuff. You can see there just how thin it is. Hopefully the clock will continue going. That doesn't look too bad at all. Well, the clock's been drying now for 3 days, just naturally. I haven't applied any heat to it at all, hair dryer or oven for that matter. And it now needs oiling. So that's the next little job. I'll carry that out now. This is a little clock oiler, and it's like a fountain pen. Now you can see the clock oil, you can see how thin it is. You can buy it separately in a bottle, and you can do this job just as easily using the eye of a darning needle. And this just has that little needle on the end there. Just need to take that cap off and oil the clock. You can see where the pivot comes through the plate. There's like a little well round it. See that one there? There's one there, and that one there. And what you need to do is just fill the well and no more. If the oil runs down the plate, it drags all the oil out of the well, and the clock very quickly runs dry. That one's not very good. So I'll just continue to do that. There are lots of them, and you need pretty good eyesight to do it. Well, I've oiled the clock and I've hung it onto this button on the wall in the garage so that it's absolutely horizontal. And I'll put the pendulum on and swing it, having wound it up, and see if after all that effort the blooming thing goes. Well, it's been going for half an hour now, after a few stops and starts, and the tick-tock doesn't sound too bad. It sounds quite well balanced. So if I put the mechanism back in the clock, hopefully it'll keep going. Well, the clock's been going for over a week now. Let's hope it continues. Yes, very pleasing.